Do we need the work of translation? The answer is no. Syntax, constructions, and sort. We are facing an issue that the language competence Chomsky defined might not be directly connected to language acquisitions, although he revealed the possibility of construction in grammar. Then some argue that languages obviously have constructions in verbs of give, bring, and name, if they may be acquired explicitly. In my opinion, whenever a topic of how we think in language acquisition should be considered, and we would put emphasis on the premise that the way of thinking could be piled up in double and triple tiers. A typical argument is that language acquisitions are not immensely based on translation ordinary classes might give to learners. At the same time, they are not relied on grammar translation textbooks given to them. We are sure of their straightforward approaches to their learning. However, we might say the opposite kind of thing to this issue of translation related to the speed in interpretations of context. Brunner. We begin with some defining assumptions of Brunner. A growing is characterized through reaction from prompt. Growing is dependent on stored things in mind. Growing in the development intelligence includes some are represented correctly. Growing in the development intelligence is heavily relied on a close relationship between teachers and learners. Teaching is achieved through language, and growing in the development in intelligence is based on awareness. He put forward an assumption of how the child gets free of present stimuli and conceives past experience in the model, and the rules that govern storage and delivery of information of this model. Teachers have a duty that they should recognize and understand what is changed at the process of growth, although the treatment is difficult in every situation of education. Memory. An important issue in education is memory. Markovich gives an explanation that memory is embedded in other complex behavioral representations such as thought, reasoning, or emotion. Events are often forgotten, however, strong emotions are not. The structure of memory is particular and specific. Forgetting can occur. On the case of the trace decay, the limited capacity of memory and interference. Bartley also gives an exploration of the definition of memory by adding that the multi-component system that utilizes storage as part of its function of facilitating complex cognitive activities, such as learning, comprehending, and reasoning. Our memory is in storage and retrieved from information in minds individually. Furthermore, Talbing refers to episodic memory as a form of memory in terms of the feature of the system that receives and stores information about temporally dated episodes or events, and the temporal spatial relations among them. Our memory may depend on episode experiences and memories we have. Anderson explains that appropriate memory to be retrieved is relied on as zoom in thinking. Dorius. The contemporary aim of language learning is not based on interpreting letters of Latin and structures, but manipulating languages fundamentally. Historically, language structures have been taught in classrooms and stories of repetitions have been practiced. Then language instructions have been implemented in a way are teacher-oriented. Recent research studies into the relation between language instructions and second language acquisition provide the practical, complicated situation on the growth of what is learned. For developing language abilities more, Patio teachers instruct students with intermediate and advanced levels. Proficiency. Here is a question that language proficiency develops through input or output in learning languages. Apparently, education of languages have been clearly based on input teachers give in classrooms and oral instructions. On learner-centeredness, Longo argued that teachers are typically encouraged to employ pedagogic procedures likely to create a positive classroom climate. They should praise learners' achievements. The important role of teacher is defined as a catch of appropriate achievements in learning. Surely, acquiring many fundamental elements as memory is a basic. Swain, Skinner, and Steinman insist that language learning and teaching have been primarily organized and around skills and the acquisition of vocabulary, syntax, and knowledge of different sets of rules. With regard to instructions, Lightbound and Spider give an explanation that there can be little doubt that an instructional approach that rigidly adheres to a single way of teaching all students and an expectation that all students can learn in the same way will deprive some students of learning opportunities. As job teachers, they need to understand what the learners learn at practical and real situations. For example, on the direct method as the effect of behaviorism, Hammer explains that the direct method teachers used only English in the classroom. Home and meaning associations were made using real objects, pictures, and or demonstrations. The historical shift from translation. At the end of the 19th century, a movement abandoned translation because linguists focused on phonetics put an emphasis on the significance of spoken language. It might bring us a phonetic distinction between Ham and August. With regard to the shift, the methods of teaching were considered as more effective learning, related to the problems on how to teach and how to learn. The movement made teachers speak foreign languages. Direct method, audiolingual method, communicative method, and task-based language teaching were achieved. Analysis. This research study gives a writing task to write a summary of stories to 54 students in the second grade in the public local high school in Japan. The results of this study revealed the individual differences to understand and interpret the context of stories. Important text. How do we make this text more practical? Question. Remember phrases. Make a summary. Examples. Summary. Discussion. The results of this research study examines what was learned in the process of outputting writing. Prepared reading texts were easy to understand for the students. The students interpreted the text correctly using language forms and structures that they have already acquired. The important introduction of writing was to give a text which is simple to the students. The text includes the complicated structure of a relative clause. However, they interpreted the structure correctly on the basis of their knowledge of languages. Riqqa gives an exploration of language transfers in writing instructions as a case that students borrow an expression from a text in reading to writing context. In addition, Bynes also gives an explanation of important and flexible recognitions and awareness transforms the meaning in writing, and provides a statement in writing of if writing instruction is to foster learners' capacity for making meaning-based choice for fostering their continued willingness and interest in making them in the first place. The view is heavily based on the extent to which the students understand the reading text of stories and interpret their structures, settings, and conditions as an ability of reading related to the achievement of recreate the meaning of context. From the point of view, education of writing is defined as one of creating meaning at a given context, connected with the actions to choose vocabulary structures and coherences appropriately. Naturally, it is relied on knowledge and information students have already acquired at the process of enough input. The important things in education may be primarily focused on input, output, and intake, like transfers of forms and meanings. Without doubt, individual differences are brought to the context in learning languages based on each interpretation, understanding, and interest. Teachers may be afraid of such matters in classrooms because they tend to believe that they can give the same instruction in education. However, for growing the development of intelligence of students well, teachers should make activities that students can learn all creatively. Practically, the treatment of individual differences is too controversial in classrooms based on the doubt and fears teachers might have in their daily instructions they believe. As the first step, teachers should give an opportunity to students that can produce they want to say freely. As the second step, teachers should give time to share their productions, creativities, and opinions. As the third step, teachers should know what students learn from the given text, although it is not relied on new form instruction teachers want to teach as repetition, but on content with meaning a text has. With regard to the issue of proficiency, many research studies in the second language acquisition have examined the effectiveness of communicative teaching methods in order to develop language usages in communicative contexts. The tendency provides an insight that the language forms and meaning should be taught at the stations of communication. Until recently, based on such communicative activities, many instructions that focus on interaction and negotiation between students have been created toward a new view. However, teachers should notice what is conveyed in forms and meaning in context connected with issues of memory. Then students may learn just from the theory of repetition and may understand meaning as a usual habit of translation education. Importantly, in acquiring a second language appropriately, we actually need further research of what these lines should be investigated in terms of every aspect of forms, meaning, and interpretations of context. This present study investigated the language usages in writing and suggested that teachers should accept the individual differences in education related to creativity in writing. Certainly, it is tough for teachers to realize and notice what students learn in classrooms. However, interactions in education have enormous possibilities beyond the scope of expectations of educators. Therefore, teachers must prepare for such activities to develop intelligence through experience and knowledge. It is not easy to change instructions of what should be taught in classrooms, but hard to set awareness in education as appropriate educators. References